Have you ever Googled the worst places to live in the United States? Or maybe the most dangerous places in the US? If you said yes, this video is for you. We're going over the places you should not be moving to or living in 2026. This isn't based on like one or two stats. This is based on the research I've done over the last couple years. These are the worst places to buy real estate, call home, work, anything else. Now we're doing this in no real order because we're judging on so many different things. Let's take a look. 25, Shreveport, Louisiana. They've got a shrinking population, limited job growth, crime concerns through the roof, and few economic engines left. I mean, they're not making any money. It is known for its crime. It is known for its poverty. And it's in Louisiana, and Louisiana's got its own set of problems besides each individual city. Shreveport is in the northwest corner of Louisiana, not too far from Longview, Texas. It's really close to the border of Texas, and it's south of Arkansas's border, where you might find places like the amazing Texarkana. The only thing I've ever noticed there that is decent and I like about it is their Discovery Center. It's pretty cool. They got a really big IMAX place. That's kind of cool. Everything else, you should only go there if the judge tells you you have to return for court or something like that. Because you shouldn't be living there. I mean, too much crime and there's basically no jobs. A lot of poverty. 24, the Tenderloin in San Francisco, California. The Tenderloin is a neighborhood in San Francisco, and it is one of San Francisco's worst neighborhood. Their population demographic is like 70% homeless. And it still costs a buttload to live there. This is where high cost of living meets visible addiction, crime, and quality of life breakdowns. Whenever you see some horrible pictures of the homeless epidemic in San Francisco, they're probably showing you pictures of the Tenderloin. Now, there has been efforts to clean it up, and it is a little bit better, but give it a couple months, and it's gonna look horrible. All the people that say it's not that bad usually show pictures of when they really cleaned it up because they had some kind of dignitaries coming to town. If homeless people were moths, the Tenderloin would be a 200-watt light bulb. 23, Fresno, California. Yeah, we're going in east from San Francisco, where you've got high poverty, poor air quality, and few pathways to higher paying careers. Most anyone that has a good amount of brain cells gets the hell out of Fresno, and they do head to San Francisco, and they hope they don't end up in the Tenderloin. Fresno is hot during the summer. This whole part of California is that inland Central Valley is just miserable when summer hits. It's almost like the desert with a couple extra trees. That's it. Used to see this a lot when I was a kid, back in the 1970s, that during summer days you see oil spots. Basically, they were dried oil for most of the year, and then it gets so hot, the oil liquefies again. About 2 years ago, I saw that in Fresno. Now, Los Angeles and other places where I've lived, that's kind of a thing of the past. Cars are better maintained and they're not dripping oil everywhere. And a lot of them are electric these days. But Fresno, they're still living like it's the 1970s with oil on the roads that bubble during summer months. Now, I've talked about how bad Fresno is before, and their crime, their poverty, their air quality, like I said, is just horrible. And I find very few people that argue that. Now, I've said things about Detroit, and right away people say, no, it's getting better, which it is. And people will defend Detroit, not Fresno. Nobody defends Fresno. My buddy Eric, he's from Fresno. He says that the place sucks. It always has. 22, Youngstown, Ohio. This is one of those Rust Belt cities that just has never recovered. It's post-industrial collapse, population loss, and an economy that never found a replacement industry. And that's their biggest problem. When all the manufacturing left, all the jobs left Youngstown, but they still got a decent college there, so who knows? The good news is the cost of living's pretty low, and the median home price is $46,000. So, I mean, you got to deal with a whole lot of crime, but you get a house that's extra cheap. You may not want that house, but it's extra cheap. 21, Pine Bluff, Arkansas. If you haven't heard about Pine Bluff, Arkansas, you haven't watched more than a few videos on this channel, because I always bring them up whenever I'm talking about Arkansas. They suck that bad. They're like the poster child of what went wrong in Arkansas and continues to be wrong in Arkansas. Now, told many times that the northwest corner of Arkansas is totally different from the rest of Arkansas. Pine Bluff is nowhere near the northwest corner. It's almost like it's in a different state. Actually, it's almost like it's in a different galaxy. It's so bad. A galaxy filled with guns, drugs, and people that make really bad decisions. Pine Bluff always shows up as one of the most violent cities in the United States. Sometimes it's only beat by its neighbor to the north, Little Rock. And before anyone leaves a comment, yes, Little Rock is north and a little bit west of Pine Bluff. Arkansas is filled with really bad places to live, but those are the two of the worst. And I would never recommend anyone moving to either one of them. Number 20, Albany, Georgia. Yes, Albany, Georgia. It's got limited opportunities, serious crime issues, and economic dependence on a small number of employers. This place is ridiculously bad. The one good thing is their total crime rate has gone down a little bit than I think 4 years ago when I did this video, because their overall crime sucked. Right now it's only 15% above the national average. Their violent crime rate though is 129% above the national average. They've got a population of about 72,000 residents, and they work overtime to get really bad stats. Their schools aren't great, their commute, their amenities, they don't have much to do there, and that's part of the reason their overall crime rate's gone down, is because there's not a lot of businesses to burglarize anymore. Number 19, Trenton, New Jersey. Trenton, New Jersey ranks up there as one of the worst state capitals in the country. Jackson always takes the first place award for that one. If you're not sure where Trenton, New Jersey is, it is northeast of Philadelphia and southwest of New York City. It's almost in the middle, right between them. But they've got crime problems. Their violent crime's 186% above the national average. Their total crime rate's not terrible. It's 56% above the national average. Their schools are graded an F. Their employment is graded an F. Their housing is decent because you can get a house for about $97,000. That's their median home price. Rent is where they stick you because it's a place that sucks, and the average rent for a one-bedroom apartment is about $1,085. And yeah, almost everyone rents there. The national average for homeowners, owner-occupied households, is almost 64%. In New Jersey, it's 64.1%, but in Trenton, it's 38%. When you have too many renters, the city's always going to suck because they don't have like a vested interest in the neighborhood. So they're not going to have the same class when it comes to taking care of the place or making the place look good. Number 18, Barstow, California. Extreme heat, limited jobs, isolation, and little reason to stay beyond necessity. And the necessity normally is you had to stop and pee on your way to Vegas. That's the only reason anyone stops in Barstow. And if you don't know where Barstow is, it is about halfway between Vegas and Los Angeles, a little closer to Los Angeles, right before you get to the serious part of the desert. And it is also, in the Barstow metro area, you'll find Hinckley. If you ever watch the movie Aaron Brockovich, that's a movie about Hinckley, California, and how the local utility company basically poisoned the water and then tried to hide it from the locals while they were all getting every kind of cancer there was. So yeah, in a nutshell, you should never live in Barstow, California. 17, Southside Chicago. Now, everybody knows Chicago's bad reputation for everything, and most of it has to do with their crime, and their violent crime especially. Most of that reputation comes from the South Side. There are a few neighborhoods on the East Side that, are kind of scary too, but nothing compared to the South Side. That being said, the violent crime rate in Chicago is only 50% above the national average. That's not terrible. It's not good, it's not terrible. But if you look at the South Side, it's 240% above the national average. So in other words, the South Side's doing all the heavy lifting for its worst stats. If you actually compare all the major cities of the United States for their crime rate, in 2024, Chicago came in at the 25th spot out of 100. So, it's just hype that they're just dangerous and it's a war zone. South Side kind of is. The rest of Chicago is pretty nice. But you should never live there, no matter how cheap it is. Number 16, the entire state of Louisiana. Yes, there's no reason to really live there. It's good to go visit. There's a lot of things to enjoy there. But they have like 5 of the most dangerous cities in the United States. Shreveport, which we already talked about. New Orleans, which is coming up. Baton Rouge, Monroe, Alexandria, and even smaller cities like Marksville, which has about 6,000 residents, but they have a violent crime rate that is 415% above the national average. They've got a ton of small towns that you should avoid as well. We're talking about a state with a curious amount of their population actually fishing for dinner every night, not because they want to, because they have to. Don't move to Louisiana. 15, McDowell County, West Virginia. McDowell County has been ravaged by the loss of coal jobs. The entire county is pretty much vacant. You could buy homes here for under $50,000. Sure, they look like the shack that Jed Clampett lived in before he struck gold, but they're under $50,000. But in McDowell County, you got severe economic decline, healthcare shortages, and limited opportunity. Screw limited. They got no opportunity. You know what? The only opportunity you have there is moving out. And if you can't afford to rent a U-Haul, I would suggest putting whatever you can in a backpack and just walking out of that county. Number 14, El Centro, California. You got extreme heat, isolation, limited jobs, and infrastructure that feels stretched thin. Now, they don't have as bad a crime as some of the other ones on this list, but I'm talking the heat here is horrible. It is in the middle of the California desert on the Mexico border almost. If you're looking for it on a map, you leave San Diego and head to Yuma, which nobody ever really does, but it's about midway to Yuma from San Diego. This is not your typical California town. It's not terribly expensive because it sucks. Now, their crime isn't bad. Their cost of living isn't bad. Their health and safety isn't bad. Their schools get a D+. Just like everything is below average for this place. And then on top of it, you get stuck with the Mexico border, which brings its own problems, and the heat, dust, and dirt, and everything else that goes with El Centro. I've been to El Centro too many times to remember. It's right on the border with Mexicali, and it was a fun place when we were in our early 20s. These days, I would suggest nobody go to Mexicali or El Centro. You go through the streets of El Centro and you can just tell this is where your hopes and dreams go to die. Number 13, Brownsville, Texas. Brownsville is another border town with Mexico. And up until recently, they had zero going for them. But then Elon Musk decided to build Starbase here, and that gave this dying city a little CPR. They're not out of the woods. They've got high poverty, limited economic mobility, and extreme heat with low wages almost everywhere. There are a handful of people that have moved there that work for Starbase and Elon Musk's next adventure, whatever, but not enough to really bring this town around. They've got crime, they've got unemployment, they don't have really good schools. They're actually rated a D. The good news is their cost of living is 17% lower than the Texas average, so that's good. They're just sitting next to a border with Mexico that has its own problems. Number 12, Laredo, Texas. Yep, just up the border from Brownsville, you've got Laredo, Texas, which I will tell you right now, some of the best Mexican food I've ever had in my life was in Laredo, Texas. But would I go back just to eat Mexican food or live there? Absolutely not. So why do I say Laredo is not a good place to live? Well, first of all, it's border economy dependent. So if there's any problems with the border, if the government decides to shut down all access to Mexico like they keep talking about, it's going to be a big problem in Laredo. They've got limited job diversity and the infrastructure is completely screwed up. It's strained, to put it mildly. Number 11, Memphis, Tennessee. Yes, if you don't know Memphis is in bad shape, you probably don't watch the news. Or channels like this one, where I tell you when a place really sucks, and Memphis really sucks. Sure, Beale Street is a nice place to visit, a little musical history. It's a good place to have a party. Don't venture off Beale Street. Go to Beale Street, go to the Bass Pro Shop Pyramid, buy some barbecue, go back to your hotel room, and don't leave. As far as living there, you know what? You might as well take up base jumping. That's when those people go to the top of really tall buildings with a parachute and they jump off and they hope that their parachute opens before they hit the ground and become a stain on the sidewalk. Both living in Memphis and base jumping have really similar danger stats. Currently, Memphis is the second most violent city in the United States. I would never live here. You shouldn't either. Number 10, Birmingham, Alabama. Yes, Birmingham sucks, and so does the Birmingham in England. They both suck equally. Birmingham, Alabama has economic stagnation, outside of healthcare, high crime in many neighborhoods, and it's got very limited upward mobility, meaning if you get a job there, you just got a job. There's not much of a chance of you going up and becoming, I don't know, the assistant manager at Dollar General. Number 9, Camden, New Jersey. They got high crime, limited job access, heavy reliance on outside aid, and few reasons to stay if you have other options. When I first started this channel, Camden always showed up in one of the most dangerous cities in the United States. I mean, they've got horrible poverty, their infrastructure is a mess, and the city of Philadelphia, right across the river from Camden, would like to blow the bridges so nobody could get back over. Camden's one of those cities that only gets new residents because their teachers trying to pay off their student loans. Give you an idea how bad that place is? They have a violent crime rate that's 284% above the national average. I've seen less violence at an MMA event. Number 8, Flint, Michigan. Flint is still rebuilding trust after the water crisis. They've got a weak economy and long-term health and infrastructure damage that they may never recover from. If you don't know about the Flint water crisis, this is what happened. The governor appointed an emergency financial manager to handle Flint because they were in bad financial shape. Basically, this financial manager had one mission, one directive from the governor: cut the budget at any cost. This led to them switching from Lake Huron water to the Flint River water. The problem was they needed some anti-corrosion treatment on the water now because it was different. They decided not to do it because it was too expensive. Not long after the switch, the water coming out of the faucets throughout Flint was brown. When that became obvious what it was doing, Detroit offered to switch them to their water system. They declined the offer because it would cost too much money, and one thing led to another, and they were sued up the yazoo and cost them a whole bunch of money. So that's what you're dealing with in Flint. The water crisis is pretty close to over, but it's going to leave a shadow on this city forever. And it's just one of many reasons you shouldn't move to Flint, Michigan. Number 7, East St. Louis, Illinois. Yes, right across the river from St. Louis, you've got East St. Louis, and East St. Louis sucks. You don't even need to know the numbers. Just go to Google Street View, start poking around this town. You'll be surprised that it's in the United States. It honestly looks like some area that was aerial bombed 10 years ago, and they're just still trying to pick up the pieces. That's what this place looks like. But they're going through extreme disinvestment, poverty, crime, and a tax base that has never recovered, and it's not growing. It's getting worse. People are still flooding out of there. They barely got any money in taxes coming in as it is. I saw a video about 3 years ago where the guy said East St. Louis is a perfect place to live if you're trying to dodge a warrant or a subpoena, because the police don't even like to go there. And you shouldn't either. Number 6, Rockford, Illinois. You know, Chicago always gets all the bad press, but how dangerous it is and how bad off it is. Rockford is way worse. They've got a violent crime rate that's 211% above the national average. Their schools get a big fat F. Their employment is F. The only good thing is the cost of living is low, and so is the housing. And that's because nobody wants to live there. Everyone's trying to get out. One other good thing, you can get a 2-bedroom apartment for about $750 a month. This place has a series of nicknames. The Forest City. Okay, that sounds nice. I think that's the official one. But then it's also the Screw Capital of the World, Screw City, Fastener Capital of the World, and Reaper City. So they used to make things here, machine shops and stuff like that. I think they made a bunch of screws. But the Screw City, that should be Las Vegas's nickname. Or maybe Pahrump, Nevada. Change your name to the Screw City. But Rockford is in the middle of a serious economic decline outside the insurance industry. They've got crime, though, and they've got a serious problem with population loss. Number 5, Paterson, New Jersey. Paterson sort of sucks, but it's still got a high cost of living. It's actually 15% higher than the national average. They've got horrible crime. Their schools are graded a D. Their housing is a D. And their crime rate isn't good. I mean, their total crime rate's 57% above the national average, and their violent crime rate is 173% above the national average. The national average is 2,119 people will be the victim of a crime out of every 100,000 residents. In Paterson, it's about 3,430. Don't move to Paterson. Number 4, the entire state of Alabama. Yes, they've got some serious rural poverty, and that's why they get the whole state, because you can't really pin it down to one city, even though they do have some cities that aren't great. You got Birmingham, which we talked about earlier, Montgomery, Selma, but where they really suck is the rural communities, the counties. They're just horrible. They got really bad poverty, which always comes with some crime. Outside of Huntsville and maybe Mobile a little bit, the state kind of sucks. You should not move there. On top of all that other stuff, it's got horrible heat in the summer with a lot of humidity and mosquitoes and everything else. I mean, a lot of states have those, but, you know, it's just the icing on top of the Alabama cake. Number 3, Arkansas. Low wages, limited job diversity, and infrastructure struggles. Yes, we talked about Arkansas earlier. It's got 2 of the worst cities in the United States, which are Pine Bluff and Little Rock. Well, like Alabama, a lot of their rural communities just suck. They're in bad shape, heavy drug use, lack of jobs, serious poverty, and of course, crime. Other than the northwest corner, there's not many places in Arkansas that anyone should be moving to. And you shouldn't. Number 2, New Orleans. Yes, the whole state of Louisiana hit earlier, and again, that had to do with a lot of the rural communities and stuff, but part of that whole package is the crime in the cities and the poverty in the cities. New Orleans is pretty bad off. They've got the culture. Cultural stuff is strong, but crime, insurance costs, flooding risks, and governance issues wear people down in New Orleans. I've been to New Orleans a few times in the last handful of years, and each time I go there and I'm like, okay, this was kind of fun, but this city's kind of gross. The entire city smells like a swamp. Even when you get into the suburbs of New Orleans, they don't get much better. All right, before we get to number 1, if you've not subscribed to this channel, we would really appreciate it if you did. Helps the channel out a lot. All right, on to number 1. Jackson, Mississippi. Chronic infrastructure failures, water issues that feel third world, limited job growth, and persistent violent crime rates. Basic services feel optional here. Everything is wrong in Jackson, Mississippi. It is the absolute worst state capital we have in this country. Like I said, they're in the middle of a water crisis right now, and that's on top of all the crime issues they got going on. Poverty is harsh. For a capital city, this place is pretty much an embarrassment, and you shouldn't move there. I wouldn't suggest moving the entire state of Mississippi, but I'd definitely stay out of Jackson. All right, that's today's video. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Hope you got some information out of it. Now go out, have a great day. Don't go to Jackson, Mississippi. Be nice to each other.